It takes a brave man and woman to tackle the streets of Chicago for the Lord. Not just any person can take the pink line, blue line, brown line, the 21 bus, the 74 bus, you name it, week in and week out, and come out unscathed. You must be very bold like Bonnie and Clyde. You see, Bonnie and Clyde were notorious criminals. They robbed banks, used machine guns, and ultimately were hunted down by the law. They were rebels. In a way, kind of like Nora and I guess. One time we were walking down the sidewalk in the city and we were talking about how we were always toughing it out, taking public transportation in the cold, and Nora said, "You know what? We're like a modern-day Bonnie and Clyde." That quote actually came from some movie she was referring to, but after she said it, she did this strut with her arm, and ever since that moment we became known to ourselves as Bonnie and Clyde, B&C for short. I like the shortened version because I don't want to be named after some notorious criminals, and if I'm going to have any association with those gangsters, it would only be because the sweetest person in my life associated me with them. So that is Nora and I, B&C, and these are our adventures.
Hey, sequel guy! Hey, sequel guy!
The significance of that event cannot be minimized. Here I was, deep in conversation about the importance of grammar in a particular verse of the Bible, and some girl is yelling out at me and waving to me, totally interrupting the conversation. I just wanted to finish my conversation, so I waved. Little did I know that that same girl would be the one on whom God would set my heart and affections on. Later, God started to let Nora in on the fact that maybe she should keep an open mind to me. Even a homeless man insisted I would marry her. One night, while we were deep in conversation, he just blurted out to me, "You're going to marry that girl." Not just once, but 3 or 4 times he said it. "You're going to marry that girl." I think God was speaking through him a prophetic word for me which I would not see come true for months. Why does God often give you a more difficult path than someone else? This question felt true when our relationship began. We both started to see that God was wanting us to consider each other as possible mates, and we were really just friends. It took a step of faith for both of us, and the pain was there from day one. I think this was the case because we couldn't see where God was taking us. We were not able to conclude how God was going to begin love in our hearts by the time we spent together, the spiritual connection we would make through conversations, and the small steps we would take as we began courting. Most of this growth took place as we conversed on the 8th floor of Jenkins Hall at the Moody Bible Institute. They don't call it the Moody Bridal Institute for nothing. We talked in the doorway for hours, in the stairwell for hours, on the bench, and in the garden area. But in the garden area was where we had a moment of testing. It came because I was not really sure that God was going to take the relationship through the finish line, and so my faith started to waver. Nora, on the other hand, was thinking the very opposite. In fact, she had heard prophetic words about us just the weekend before, confirming the relationship. We were in the center of God's will. As I brought this up, Nora was confused and hurt. She couldn't understand where God was leading us, but she was going to trust Him anyway. She recommended that we take the weekend and not talk to each other. She would be on a retreat that weekend, and I was visiting my old church. During that time, God would confirm what He was already doing, building and growing us together. He challenged Nora to continue on through difficult times, and he confronted me that I needed to repair what I had damaged through my doubt and faithless words. After the weekend ended, we were at Newberry Park talking about what we decided to do about us. I was willing to go forward by faith, and she wanted to go forward because she saw what God had already done for us so far. Would He not complete the work? What a woman of God she is. Then a man walked by and interrupted us. He said, "You have a nice-looking girlfriend. Is that your girlfriend?" The ball was in my court to answer yes or no. If I said yes, it would mean that I was affirming what I had said I would do, which was to repair the relationship and carry it forward. So I did. I answered yes. Yes, she is my girlfriend. God often brings about what we speak, not in a hocus-pocus fashion, but in His power and with our faith as the means to accomplish it. It started with me telling people of my plans. I would tell them of my plans to be engaged. This went on for months. I mentioned my future thoughts and plans to someone at work, and she said, "Well, it looks like you have the blessing of the whole community." She was referring to the work community, but I believed it applied to the broader community that I inhabited. I felt this was true, that I had the blessing of the community. However, my work was not done yet. Soon after that, I sensed the Spirit leading me to sing about my love for Nora to people. Now this had gone too far. I was not going to do this. But if I didn't do this, something would be missing. God was doing something great in my heart. So as I did this, I would give a little voice to the word love when I would tell people I was in love. This also went on for months, but when it was completed, I had this sense that God was building the very love in me for Nora. I did already love her, but this solidified it. Finally, one last piece had to be done. I was to tell people about the proposal.